guys, welcome back to my channel. So I have another repaint for you guys today. I got this comment on my Rainbow High Magical Girl Pastel Witch repaint, and I was like, oh, I should make a lamb doll. I also decided that it would be a perfect excuse to use one of my favorite hybrid combinations, which is the Cave Club bodies and then any of the many tiny heads that I've collected. I have a lot of selection when it comes to my tiny head collection. I have a bunch of Enchantimals, some Monster High dolls, Ever After High, and some Barbie dolls. I actually picked up one of these Barbie Extra mini dolls recently. Well, at this point I've picked up a couple of them, and I just think that they're so cute, and I contemplated using it for this project but decided not to. I have an extra of the doll that I used for my Pride Pegasus doll. It's a Barbie Starlight Sprite adventure doll. I thought about using that, but I thought it might be a little bit repetitive since I used it in the past. And I actually have the Enchantimals lamb doll, and I wanted to use that because I just thought it'd be kind of cool, but the head's really hard and I wanted to reroute something. So I decided to go with this Ever After High pixie doll. I decided to go with her because she just has a really sweet face mold, and I thought it would lend really well to this character. So let's get on into prepping them. So I have to take their respective heads off, so I'm heating them up with a blow dryer. I wanted to see how the combination would look because I've never put this head on this body. I figured it would look good, but I just wanted to check, and I think it's so adorable. To be honest, the Ever After High not Enchantimals, they look like Enchantimals dolls. I think they're like the predecessor to Enchantimals from what I've looked up, but the head is not that much smaller than the Cave Club doll, but it's a little bit smaller, and I just think it's so cute. It's such a cute little combination. I actually really like this doll's hair color, but I wanted to change it to white, so I have to cut all of her hair off. Once it's cut off, I put her head in hot water. This is just to heat up the vinyl so that I can scratch around the inside of the head with my screwdriver and get all of the glue gunk out. The neck hole was really small, so I couldn't fit my needle nose pliers into the neck hole, so I had to cut a slit in the back of the head and pull out the glue gunk that way. Now I have to take her cute little face paint off. I think these dolls are really cute, but I just used 100% acetone, and I'm just wiping all of the paint off of her face and her scalp. Since she has that giant slit in the back of her head and I wanted to reroute, I have to sew it up, so I'm doing so with some thread and a needle, and I'm going up and out through the hole that I slit instead of kind of struggling to get it through the neck hole and then going up and out that way. I just find this method way easier. I've seen people like glue the slits back together, but I find when you reroute and you do this, it's just the glue is not like sturdy enough to deal with the pressure, so sewing is the best option that I've seen, or solution that I've seen, when you want to reroute something and you have a hole in the head. Also, you may notice that she has two holes in the front of her head from, I guess, like antlers or ears or something that comes with this doll. I'm not really sure, but I just decided that once I reroute it with the yarn anyway, you're not going to be able to see it. It's going to cover it up, so I didn't do anything about these. Since we're going to be rerouting, I paint her scalp white. This is just so that you can't see any gaps in the reroute, or they're just not as noticeable. Now on to hair, so I'm using 100% acrylic yarn, and I decided to give her white hair mostly, but I wanted to use this pink yarn and give her some like light dusty pink streaks. I just thought it'd be really cute, and also it would create a little bit of variety in her hair color. I'm prepping the yarn how I normally do, so my brass knuckle scarf holder bag handle is making an appearance, and I'm just brushing the yarn from the bottom and working my way up with a cat brush. Lately, I haven't really even been straightening my yarn. I don't really mind like a little bit of a wave to it anyway, and especially for this doll, I thought it'd be like kind of nice. I take a bit of the yarn, loop it around my finger, and then loop it around the reroute tool and plunge it into the head. With reroutes, generally I do the hairline first, and then I do all of the rest of the hair and the part last. To secure all that hair in, I use Fabri-Tac glue, and I just squeeze it in through the neck hole. So she has human ears, and I want her to have lamb ears. So I'm going to be cutting off her human ears with my X-Acto blade. I always like cringe when I do this. I don't know, it just like it feels like it would probably be painful, even though she has a vinyl head and she's not a person, she's a doll. But I put some pins in where her ears are going to be to act as stabilizers. We're going to be making the ears with epoxy sculpt, and epoxy sculpt has a tendency to kind of like pop off of vinyl because vinyl is squishy and epoxy sculpt is very hard, and it's always just really annoying when that happens. So I'm trying to do everything to prevent that from happening, and one of those things are these pins. So it just has something to anchor the ears to the head. If y'all aren't familiar with epoxy sculpt, it's pretty great stuff, at least in my opinion. I feel like when I first started using it, I hated it, but now I really like the stuff. And it's like a 2-part compound that you mix together, and it causes, okay, people have corrected me in the past because I've been like, it's air dry clay, and they're like, no, it's not. The chemical process when you combine them, I guess, makes it so that it like air dries or something. Okay, I'm not like a scientist or anything. That's my general understanding. So I looked up reference for lamb ears, and I'm just trying to mimic them. They're like these cute little folded things, and yeah, I just gave her some cute little folded ears. I think it's stinking adorable. Once the ears were dry and I sanded them down, I popped them off a little bit, and I put super glue underneath them and pressed them really hard onto the head so that they would just be even more reinforced and they won't pop off once I put the head back on. So we are finally onto the face up. I spray the doll 3 times Mr. Super Clear, waiting 15 minutes between each spray. I'm wearing a respirator mask, and then I start painting. And this doll, unfortunately, got 2 face ups. So I wanted to show you the first one, just like a quick version of it. I obviously had to color match the skin because her face was all like pink and stuff, and I'm doing that with pastels. But yeah, so the first face up that I did, I started it really late in the day, and I think I did it after work, and I just sketched it on, and I decided that I wasn't crazy about it. I made her eyes really big. I just found that once I got to all the little details in the eyes, it was very late and I was very tired, and I had a hard time painting them because I was so tired. So I don't know about y'all, but if I do a face up and I don't like it, and a doll takes me so long, like some dolls take me like 2, some dolls 3 weeks. If I just sit there and I hate the face up, and every time I look at it I just think that I hate the face up because that's what I do, it's not worth it. Just wipe it. So that's what I ended up doing, but I wanted to show you guys the first attempt at the face up because I always think it's interesting to see that. So take 2 for the face, I had to color match her again, and I decided for the eye shape this time, instead of making them really big, I wanted to make them a bit smaller and give her that kind of sweet cross-eyed look. So her irises are just kind of pointed more towards the middle of her face. It sounds weird, but it comes across kind of cute, so that's what I'm trying to do, or accomplish. For blushing around the face, I use pinks, reds, purples, browns, and blues. I colored in her waterline with a peach pencil, and I've seen like a bunch of other artists do like just white waterlines, and I really want to try it, but I also really like highlighting, and especially on the waterline. But you can't highlight white. These are like the things that I like stay up at night thinking about. Not actually, but they definitely like go through my mind when I'm trying to think if I want to experiment. This is still the first layer, and I put a lot of brown on the upper and lower lid. I'm going to be bringing more highlights onto them later once I get to the highlight steps, but they look overshaded now, but later they're going to be, the light's going to be brought back to them. By the way, if you ever wonder why I keep yanking the doll towards my head, it is because I'm blowing the excess pastel off the face. I feel like I've seen people use brushes in the past, like makeup brushes, to kind of like sweep it off, but I found for me it smears pretty easily when I do that, so I just blow it off real quick. I mentioned this in like every repaint video, but it's like one of my favorite steps. So I'm adding veins around her eyes and her forehead, and I'm trying to keep her whole kind of design and the whole look of her pretty minimal because I want her to look, I don't know, like a sweet kind of innocent lamb character. She's definitely not angry or angsty. Can somebody make that though? Can somebody who isn't me make an angry, angsty lamb, please? Listen, you can take it, all right? You can take the idea if you want. I just really want to see that. For her eyes, I decided to go with a dark gray. I wanted her to have pretty dark eyes in comparison to like her light hair and everything. So I wanted them to stand out because they were just quite a bit darker than the rest of her. White pastel and blue pastel always look so intense when I lay them down, but I'm actually going to be spraying her right after this step so you can see how it gets so incredibly dulled down once I spray it. So it looks intense, see right here, it's not nearly as intense. I go over the irises with a corresponding pastel color. I just like doing this because it's easier to blend pastel than it is pencils, at least for me. Like I was saying earlier, I overshade the eyes, but then I start to bring the highlights back. So I'm doing that with a white watercolor pencil. And I'm just bringing sharp pencil highlights all around the eyes. Typically when I do brows, I make them whatever color the hair color is. But I was looking at some other like face ups that people have done where they did dolls with white hair. And I noticed that some people do, like they'll do a base color of brown for the eyebrows and then they'll go over it with white pencil or paint or whatever that they're doing. And it looks really nice. It just stands out more than if I were to do a white pastel down first. So I wanted to try that with this doll. With black pastel, I add that underneath the upper eyelid, so where the iris is, and also on the inner and outer portion of the top lid. This is to make the whites of the eyes look a little bit more three-dimensional because they look like they have a shadow to them, and to make the irises have a little bit more of like a deeper effect to them so that there's like more shading in them, and to give more shading to the upper lid. I gave her black pupils. I feel like I rarely ever do this. I don't really normally use a ton of black on the iris of the doll just because, I don't know, I feel like it looks a little too intense, but for this doll I'm trying to make her eyes look quite dark. I had a ring around her iris to give her a bit of a highlighted effect there, and also to make it look like her eyes are kind of glowing. On the right side, I kind of just leave the paint by itself, but on the left side, I add some metallic silver in that area. Just go over top of the ring with metallic silver paint. This is just to make it look like it's glowing in a metallic way, I guess. I don't know, it just looks really cool. I like it. For lashes, I use this Faber-Castell black pencil. This black pencil is not my most pigmented black pencil. I have a lot of black pencils, but it's the hardest, so I feel like it gives me the finest line, which is pretty important with lashes on a doll. To sharpen up the lash lines and also really draw your attention to her eye area, I'm going over the lashes with black watercolor. I decided at the last minute that she needed freckles, so I took 2 brown colored pencils and I'm just pressing down on her face with them. It's just to give her some darker brown freckles and some lighter brown freckles, and I'm really just kind of tapping them all over her face. As I was saying, I really like highlighting the waterline, so I add rose gold, dots of rose gold paint to the inner and outer portion of the waterline, and then white pretty much kind of all over it, mainly concentrating it on the middle, but I put it in each section. I paint metallic purple watercolor on the lash line as well as a dot on the pupil. I feel like this adds a little bit of color to her face up because it's just very, I don't know, it's just not very colorful, so it adds a little something something. With my Pearl-Ex, I think it's called Reflective Rouge. It's a duochrome kind of whitish pink color. I like adding this on the cheekbone as well as the lower lashes because it really just, it's nice and duochrome, and it also looks really good on the black of the lower lashes. I finish up the face up by adding my gloss varnish to the lips. I don't add this to the eyes anymore because I find it makes it really hard to photograph all the details. This is how her face up turned out, and I really like it. Oh my gosh, I really like it. So since she's a lamb and lambs have digitigrade legs, she's getting a very similar treatment that my fawn doll got, where I'm cutting off the very, like, right below her knees. And I'm also cutting off, I didn't do this to my fawn doll, but I'm cutting off the very tips of her toes so that I can turn them into hooves. To reconnect the legs, I needed a thicker piece of wire, and I didn't have it, so I am going to be twisting 2 pieces of wire together, and I'm going to be bending that and gluing it in place in the position that I want the legs to be. I start by hot gluing the legs together, and then I reinforce that glue with some epoxy glue. So this looks awful and I hate it. So I'm going to be reconstructing the leg so that it looks a little bit more normal and kind of like digitigrade-y humanoid thing with some epoxy sculpt. To smooth all the lumps and bumps down, I'm just using water and I'm just really kind of firmly going across the epoxy sculpt. I also have this wood tool that really helps me like kind of smooth out epoxy sculpt. I don't know what it's called, but it's like pointy and it's wooden and I like it a lot. For her hooves, I'm adding like just a blob of epoxy sculpt to the front of the foot, and then I'm separating it into two, and that's kind of giving me a hooved look. And for the heel, I'm adding a little point to that because that's just kind of what hooves look like. When I was looking up, I literally Googled lamb feet, so that's what came up. And some really just not great things came up because I guess you can you eat lamb feet? I don't know. I don't eat that. But yeah. This is how it turned out, and I think I probably could have done a better job at it, to be honest. I'm not like 100% happy with her feet or her hooves or whatever, but it does the job, I guess. After I sculpted it, I gave it a day to dry down and then I sanded it down. And once it was all nice and sanded, I painted over the legs with some white acrylic paint and I painted the hooves in black. I didn't want the hooves to just be black, so I went over it with some metallic acrylic gold paint, just to give it a little blang blang. This character is going to be very like monochromy, or not monochromy, I don't know, it's just going to be white and beige, and I figured gold was kind of like beige but metallic, I guess. I don't know. I blushed the body and I'm just using basically the tones that I used on the face, but just tons of pink. Like I feel like pink is the most used color. To be honest, if you're just not really feeling like blushing the body, but you want to give it a little something, you can just throw a quick coat of pink pastels on there, and I think it looks really good. I only do 2 layers when I blush the body because I am lazy. Ain't nobody got time to do like 7 layers of body blushing if you're me. To add the fur or sheep, what is it called? Sheep fur, sheep hide, whatever it's called. I'm adding tons of yarn to the legs. I just made millions and millions of wefts. I actually used up all of my white yarn for this project, so that's exciting because I bought it like a really long time ago. So I'm just hot gluing it. I'm starting at the bottom and then working my way up. Where her hip joint is, I didn't want to just like put the weft down because it just would look really weird. So I am putting down glue and then I cut the weft off and I'm placing just straight yarn, fur, I guess, on top of the glue. So it just looks a little bit more like it's like naturally growing out of the skin. It also keeps the posability so she can still bend her leg. For the crotch, I'm basically doing a very similar thing. So I'm laying down the glue and then I am taking the yarn that I cut off of the weft and I'm wrapping that around from her crotch to her butt. So I'm going to shear off her fur or whatever you do to sheep. So I'm just cutting a lot of the fur off so that it's more manageable and it looks more like she got some legs under there. This is always a very messy process. If you guys have never done one of these dolls, there's just tons of yarn all over the place. I'd actually sort of I would recommend wearing a mask when you do this because I don't know the whole details about this, but people have told me, again, I have not done like a ton of research on this, but people have told me that acrylic yarn is not good for you to breathe in. So I would recommend wearing a mask if you are doing this, and maybe vacuuming your room. This is how her legs look once I trimmed down all of her fur, and I also heated up her head and put her head back on her body, and it is stinking adorable, okay? I am going to be curling her hair as well because I want her to have like big curly hair, because I don't know, that's what I think of when I think of like a lamb character. So I'm heating up a chopstick with a flat iron and wrapping that around her hair, or wrapping her hair around that, and letting it sit for like maybe like 30 seconds to a minute. After about an hour, her hair is done. I also gave her a little beige bow that I found, pinned it into her head. Little cutie pie. Alright, so this lady's some clothes. She just freeballed it. So I'm gonna make her a dress. Lord knows I like dresses, but I feel like can you put like characters like this in anything other than like a dress? I mean, I guess you put them in a t-shirt. But anyway, so I made her a little beige dress. I cut out all of the pattern pieces, and then I'm hemming all of the pieces with Fabri-Tac glue. Once that's done, I gather stitched the top part of the skirt portion of the dress. Moving on to the sleeves, I gather stitched a strip of the sleeve fabric so that she's going to have like a little frilliness to the bottom of the sleeve, and then I gather stitched the top part and the bottom part of the main portion of the sleeve. I gather stitched the main portion of the sleeve so that it'll have a bit of like a poofy quality to it. I don't know exactly what to call this specific type of sleeve, but it's poofy, you know? Once the sleeve is all nice and sewn together, I am sewing that in place and the top part of the dress at the shoulder. I sewed the top together at the side seam, and then I flipped it with my chopstick. Now we're going to decorate it. So I'm using various assortments of ribbons and doll buttons that I bought, and I'm just sewing those where I want them. The dress is almost done, so I sewed the top and the bottom together, and then I sewed a couple layers of underskirts underneath that, and I sewed the dress up the back and added some clasps. Another clothing accessory I wanted her to have was a cloak, and I wanted it to be like white and velvet, because again, she's like very white and beige, and I wanted to have like a nice big collar. So that was my view for the cloak. I of course went through and hemmed everything with my best friend Fabri-Tac glue. I wanted the cloak to have a fur trim, so I cut a strip of fur that I bought. It's faux fur, and I sewed that to the very bottom of the cloak. I gather stitched the top of the cloak and sewed the collar in place. I added a lining to the cloak with the same fabric that I used for the sleeves and added some pearls to the collar and also the fur, and it's almost done. So we also are going to be adding 2 little like strings so that she can tie her cloak, or I can tie her cloak. The string is embroidery thread, and I sewed 2 little white puff balls to the end of it. Alright, this probably makes no sense, but I wanted to make her a fashionable shepherd staff. Again, how is she a shepherd if she is a lamb? Who knows? I made it, I think, a little bit too short, so whoopsie daisies. But I'm making the curly bit of the staff with a barbecue skewer that I cut down, and the topped curled part is epoxy sculpt, of course. Use it for everything. I painted the staff white with acrylic paint, and I took my hole punch and punched a hole through some foam to get a circle that I glued to the very bottom of the staff, as well as a pearl underneath that. The last thing I want to do for this staff is add a little bow with some twine. The very last accessory that I want to give her is a lamb purse. So it's a lamb purse that I'm going to be making out of felt. I cut out all the little pieces and I'm going to be gluing them in place with some Fabri-Tac glue. With acrylic paint, I gave the eyes a white eye shine as well as gave the little lamb a nose. I glued the 2 pieces of the purse together with, of course, Fabri-Tac glue. The very last step for this purse is a chain so that she can wear it. I sewed 2 little rings in place and then I attached the chain to those. So with that, she is done, and I really like this doll. I don't know. I think I'm a sucker for like any kind of fantasy character. They're just really fun for me to make. And I really like these Cave Club small head hybrids. They're my jam, alright? They just hit differently than other dolls. Not really, they're just small, and I like small things. So yeah, if you guys have any other recommendations for dolls, let me know those down below. And just stay safe out there because stuff's wilding out, alright? Everybody getting sick lately. Anyway, like this video if you like this video, subscribe, it makes me happy, and I hope you guys are having a beautiful day. Bye!
We'll be right back.